Well, hello, Zian. Hello, Special K. How are you guys doing today?
Good, very good.
So, Zian, you're in Southern California.
Yes, I am. It's uh, uh, it's a cloudy morning, and it might be cloudy for the rest of the day. We're experiencing what we know to be June gloom, so that would account for the cloudy days here in June.
Right off the Pacific Ocean there. And Brian, you're in Sri Lanka and it's nighttime.
Yeah, I'm just at a rooftop restaurant and bar here. Um, it's called Rise and Set, so you can see the sunrise on one side, sunset on the other side. So it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Island life. That's really nice. Well, I'm in beautiful Austin, Texas, where all the cool people live. And so
Right.
I just let you know where I'm hailing from. I get to moderate this conversation. Brian, you're going to interview Zian
Mhm.
today about the topic of unshaming. And I think it is so
Yeah.
helpful to have a conversation about this because we've all worked with clients and ourselves have been in situations where, we might be embarrassed to say, why am I late all the time? Or how come I can't keep my budget together? Or whatever challenge we're having, we
Mhm.
have to sort of admit to ourselves that it's a problem, then figure out maybe how to admit it to other people. I told someone the other day, a client, I get frustration with technology. And the client said, I've noticed. So it's like, Myrna, you're not fooling anybody. They can tell. It makes you frustrated. So, yeah, I think uncovering this process as we talked to Zian today about how to get shame out of the way so we can get started around a solution. So, I'll hand it off to you, Brian, if you want to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Zian.
Let's let's do it. I know this is a topic. I feel like you know a lot about this, Cian, so I feel like it's good to get your perspective on this. So if you just want to start talking about it, what is unshaming? Who this is based off mostly off David Bedrick's work, I believe. If you want to just get into like what is it, how does it help, kind of just start uncovering like how people can use this process and what it is.
So, David refers to unshame. He refers to shame not as um, feelings or emotions, but rather shame is more of a belief system. It's the way we look at ourselves. It's the way it it defines kind of the relationship that we have with ourselves. Um, and it it's detaching ourselves. Unshaming is detaching ourselves from those harmful beliefs, those belief systems that have us pathologizing ourselves, minimizing ourselves, looking at ourselves through a lens of not good enough based on um, standards defined by our um, capitalistic uh, economy
Yeah.
and other factors and other things that are part of our culture that have come
Mhm.
to keep us in bondage. And it's unshaming is a way of removing those shackles of bondage. It's a way of getting back to ourselves, a homecoming, if you will. Like you're basically gradually coming home to yourself with unshaming,
Mhm.
and you're using it to develop a better relationship with yourself, to understand yourself through a set of clear, fresh eyes, and stop stop telling yourself these stories that you may have invented in your own head about who you are, or stories that you've adopted from other people.
Mhm.
And you have, as I said, just a better relationship with yourself now that you're looking at yourself through clear eyes. Now that you see the world through a new set of eyes, because you're one of my favorite things to do when it comes to helping clients is putting things into context so that they understand what seems normal isn't normal, or what they think is unnatural is completely natural.
Mhm.
And it it depathologizes a lot of the stuff around healing and relating to self and other.
Mm.
That's how unshaming works.
Mm.
That sounds great. I mean, so I think that is really powerful and really helpful. So it's about creating a better relationship with yourself and therefore removing the barriers so you can start making progress in certain areas. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds great. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So how do people go about this? How do people start the unshaming process? Is it more about examining your beliefs and questioning them, or what does David recommend, or what do you recommend as far as how people get started creating this healthier relationship with themselves through this process?
So I read, I think a couple months back, I finished a book on psychoanalysis and neuroscience. It was a blend between the two. So in the book, they called it neuropsychoanalysis or neuropsychoanalytics.
Yeah.
And there's one part in like one of the beginning chapters where it says it's best to implement the psychoanalytical process with someone who is skilled in psychoanalysis or someone who's skilled in dissecting your problem. You can do it yourself. You don't need another person acting as a mirror. You can do it yourself if you understand enough about psychology and and enough about psychoanalysis. But it's recommended that you have someone acting as a mirror, doing the analyzing if you don't know enough, because then that person who has experience with that sort of thing can, as I said, add context to your struggles and your challenges, and they can adequately reflect back at you what it is that you may need to do or change or alter in your way of thinking about the world. So it's, as I said, best to have somebody else to do it in the beginning, and then gradually you might not need that person as much, or maybe you find that the energy that these sessions have created gets ingrained in you. Now you have that intelligence, though that energy is rubbed off on you. So now you have these tools at your disposal as a result of being exposed to them, being exposed to these dynamics and this intelligence over time. So yeah, best to have somebody help you out with it. And as you said, questioning your beliefs and thoughts and feelings, that's a huge part of it. And the other part is that we're just relating to ourselves in a different way. We're not pathologizing ourselves as much. We have more compassion for ourselves when we're unshaming. We're in the midst of learning how to create a more loving and fulfilling relationship with ourselves instead of the usual self-critical inner dialogue of woe's me, I'm not good enough. And we gradually break away from that and just start to experience a deeper sense of meaning and connection with ourselves and life.
Mm.
Awesome. Yeah. So working with like a mental wellness coach like yourself or a therapist who's trained in this is best to start with, to at least go through the process the right way the first time, at least. Maybe later on, if you learn more, you can kind of start to do it on your own to some extent.
Yeah, of course. It's
Cool.
always best, especially for unshaming. You and coaching, period. That's the whole point of coaching and therapy, is to have someone who is a witness, a compassionate, loving witness to your challenges and your struggles, so that those things are validated. Because generally speaking, the reason people go to therapy, part of the reason is that we haven't had a supportive individual who could hold space for what we're dealing with. And so the therapist, the coach, serves as someone who holds space, someone who can hold the space for that container of energy, or act as a container for that energy. And they can bear witness in a compassionate way to what you are challenged with. And those things are validated, not dismissed, because, as I said, we often don't have a support. We don't have a support system or someone who is able to validate our struggles. A lot of our struggles early on in life may have been invalidated or dismissed or minimized. And we were seen as, our struggles were seen in the eyes of others as not a big deal, or it's all in your head. The truisms that actually harm people and create. Yes, Myrna.
I was just going to say, one of the things it seems like David does is, and this whole process of unshaming that you bring to the work with your clients, is you invite them to step out of the pattern of thinking or perspective that I'm a bad person because, my community tells me I'm a loser because, and I have the struggle that other people don't seem to have. So I really must be a loser because other people are good with their money. Other people don't have a high body count. Other people can stay in a job longer than a year. Whatever it is that they're having trouble with, they self-condemn. Starts with the judgment of others, but then you take it on and make it true for yourself. It seems like you create an opportunity for discernment instead, and say, how, instead of saying you're a bad person, let's look at the functions of the behavior you're engaging in and see how it no longer serves you. So let's see how we switch up the behavior. What actions could we take? What could we do differently to have a different outcome? And you're not a bad person. You're just going to make some changes, because I think it has to seem possible for the person. Like, I could change. I've been trying to change it by myself and everybody thinks I'm never going to make it happen, but could I change it? And then could you work with me to help change it? So I'll get your comments and then we'll tell people how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. We can change. Change is natural. However, what David usually suggests when it comes to the need to change an aspect of our personality is that that desire to change is underscored by self-criticism. The I'm not good enough talk, this is what everybody else says, and I'm internalizing the judgment of others. So when in a session with me, or anyone who's familiar with anyone who's familiar with David Bedrick's work, we would first bring to light that this need to change may be underpinned by self-criticism. And to change that as a result, to change something as a result of self-criticism may not be healthy. So we make sure we highlight that, and that the client understands this, and not to say that they shouldn't change, but just so that they're aware of what's motivating them to feel that they need to change, so that they have, as I said, context as to what's going on within them, and to help them, to point them in the direction of healing possible, so that we're not painting the client through a lens of pathologization,
right?
Or we're minimizing the need to pathologize as much as possible, and we're allowing this person to regain their restore their sense of agency and power. And that's what I say when clients work with me. They get to find out how powerful they really are. I put power and integrity and dignity back into the hands of the client.
That's why we love you at Alive Design, because you put them in the driver's seat. Instead of saying, I'm a loser and I need to change, they say, I'm going to live my best life. Well, how do I go about doing that? Like, it's my turn. I'm going to go live my best life. So how do they get a hold of you? Because we just have a couple more minutes left.
Okay. Well, I have an Instagram that people can go to. I have Facebook. I have TikTok. Gmail. The handle for all my social media is Heavenly Wisdom Coaching. You can reach me at heavenlywisdom.coaching@gmail.com.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, it's great. It's really simple to get a hold of me. It's not rocket science at all.
Well, and you can certainly find Zian at alivedesign.org as one of our great contributing coaches, particularly in the area of mental wellness. Brian, any final thoughts from Sri Lanka?
No, I think it's a great process. It's a great technique. Can you just give people a few examples of where they could use it? Like maybe around drinking too much, or, using drugs too much, or maybe around social anxiety, or around, I don't know, overeating, or other examples. Just so people have a sense of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. I actually I thought about this beforehand, just as a matter of being prepared. I've been learning about attachment styles recently, like anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, anxious avoidant attachment, and secure. So I've learned upon just doing a little bit of research into attachment styles that we're possibly pathologizing people when we conclude that this person has an anxious attachment style or secure. Like, okay, so for me, I have aspects of my personality that are secure. I have aspects of my personality that are avoidant, and aspects that are anxious. So the label of anxious or avoidant or secure doesn't strictly apply to me, and we can't strictly apply those labels to every single person every single time. You'll have individuals like who have aspects of personality that are secure and anxious all at the same time. You'll have individuals that you can't strictly define as an anxious attachment style, but rather leaning towards anxious, or leaning towards leaning more towards secure. So when we strictly define ourselves as anxious or secure or avoidant, we're pathologizing ourselves, and pathologizing it's dehumanizing to the human spirit. It doesn't honor the spirit of healing, because we can't strictly define these ways of relating and functioning and behaving through black and white terms like avoidant attachment style. There's got to be room. There's got to be room for gray area and nuanced, subtle dialogue. So we start understanding how things like that don't define whole of our being in our existence. And so we stop. So this relates to unshaming in the way that we start to understand, like we actually become conscious and aware of these stories that we're telling ourselves, and we stop running autopilot. So the minute we catch ourselves having an intrusive thought like, I'm not good enough, and catch ourselves replaying all these judgments that we've adopted from everybody else around us, we say, hey, wait, that's not who I am. That's just what I'm telling myself in my head. We have recognition of our thoughts and we start to gain more recognition. You know, our awareness becomes enhanced, and it just becomes sharper over time. And that's usually the hope. That's usually the idea. So
Yeah.
That's how unshaming works. You know, we take away these elements, and these elements of healing or thinking that harm us, and we start looking at ourselves through a more dynamic range of functioning and meaning and relating.
Okay, cool. So yeah, basically it can be used anywhere where a negative label has been applied to yourself, either by yourself through your own thinking, or maybe a negative psychological term has been applied to you, like a negative attachment style or something. Anywhere where there's a negative label, we can use unshaming to kind of take away the negative power of that negative label to help healing and self-improvement to begin.
Yeah. And if I could provide one more quick example,
Sure.
I noticed, I think a couple years ago, I noticed that I'm always judging people. I'm always judging things around me because I'm in a constant state of judgment towards myself.
Right.
You know, and for instance, if I'm sitting around and I'm relaxing, I would judge myself and say that I'm being lazy.
Mhm.
But I'm not being lazy necessarily. That's a standard that's internalized inside of us that reflects capitalistic standards of production or capitalistic standards of productivity, and capitalistic standards of productivity. And so, because I'm not abiding by those standards of productivity, I'm believing that I'm being lazy. And so that's
Right.
another way that it works. When we understand why we're judging ourselves or where this judgment comes from, then we get outside of that belief system of shame and looking at ourselves as lazy, stupid, not good enough, too weak, too sensitive, whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, yeah, I think thank you for sharing this, because I think unshaming is a powerful tool that we want people to be aware of, you know,
Mhm.
here at ALD. So, and then I have one quote from David Bedrick that I'll add here. It says, unshaming is one of the most impactful and fast working techniques available to help you understand the true value and intelligence you have to share. So
Mhm.
yeah, we appreciate you sharing your insight on this for sure.
Thank you so much,
I'm
you
glad.
guys. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
it's been really great to hear from both of you today. And if someone finds themselves facing a difficulty for the first time, or something that's been on rinse and repeat for many times, unshaming can be the first step of having the life of your dreams. So we look forward to seeing you guys at alifedesign.org. And thanks again, Zian from California. Thanks again,
Thank you, Zian.
Srinivas from Sri Lanka. We'll see you guys next time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Sounds good.